Well, on today's episode of Rethink Real Estate, we have Coach Pipe, William Pipe, Bill Pipe. He goes by many, many different names, but this is probably one of the most experienced coaches that we've had on Rethink Real Estate. We dive in today and talk a little bit more about the industry of several different coaching organizations, the things that you need to know about what goes on behind the scenes, the different types of coaches and different types of people that are out there on a very regular basis that possibly could be sucking the industry dry and giving, coaching a bad name. We talk about some processes of how to take someone from X to X, all the way up to that 7-figure income when it comes to real estate. But either way, very insightful conversation here today with Bill, and looking forward to you guys listening through the episode. Hope it helps. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Bill, welcome to Rethink Real Estate.
Thanks, Ben. Excited to be on, man.
Oh, well, we've had a bit of experience with you already in our network, and, feedback has been incredible. Brian Allele, another person that he's referred to us, being yourself, to have on the podcast. He's a deep resource when it comes to a network of good people within the real estate community. So we're thrilled to have you here. But the first things first, elevator pitch on you, and why should someone hang around and listen to this episode?
Dude, I've been doing this for 29, it'll be 30 years, at the end of this year. In that time, it's actually 114,000 coaching sessions. Their average person that I coach earned 1.76 and some change million last year. Some of them with larger teams, some of them with smaller teams. And on top of that, dude, over the last 6 years, we've helped 40 people just hit the 40 mark, cross the $1 million mark for the first time. So not only do we work with these amazing, bigger, larger teams, we're also taking that solo agent, and that's at 200 to 400, 500K, and saying, hey, depending upon where you are, what you've got built already, give us a year, 2 or 3, we're going to get you over $1 million. That's what we built the entire organization around was, my belief is this, bro. First of all, real estate should be played for 7 figures. If you're going to build a business inside of real estate and you're not playing for 7 figures, get out of the way and make room for someone that is. So
yeah, that's well said indeed. Yeah. I think that there's a fair bit of fun that I can have on this episode because, Bill, you strike me as somebody that you can, I can talk about the obvious stuff within the industry because, there's definitely some people in the coaching world that are on their way out. There's no question about that. Yeah. And with all due respect to those people, rightfully so. Like it's just the same shit over and over and over and over again. And I honestly feel bad for the people that spend money to go there. It's kind of like you need to hear this so often and so many times. It actually makes me feel good about not being as creative as what I'd like to be. Yeah. But then the other part of this as well that I'm really interested to learn is just without giving away the secret sauce, because I know that there's a little bit more than just simply a set process. But that said, the relationship between you and your individual agents, like what role do you play? Could we start there? Let's talk about those 40 people that you've helped get from, say, 250,000, to over $1 million. Yeah. What's the primary role that you're playing in that structure? Is it from how does that look like from a weekly perspective? They're on a call with you. Like, what is your primary role?
So I coach, like for myself, I coach a small group of individuals, right? And I do that by design. Like for myself personally, I have 6 coaches for our organization, all of which, and I think this is an important thing. If we start debunking some of the stuff that's out there in real estate and in the real estate world, there's a lot of coaches that sold like, hey, I sold 10 homes, I'm a coach now. Or there's a lot of coaching companies that say, hey, we're going to take a agent that was mediocre as an agent, we're going to teach them how to be a coach. But dude, I climb mountains, right? That's one of my pastime, or like my passions. It's not even a pastime. Like I climbed Aconcagua, I climbed Kilimanjaro. I used to think and said I'm going to climb the 7 summits. I'm 52 years old right now, and I'm like, like I'm gonna. After having some people fall in crevasses on ropes, I said I'm gonna chill. But if I'm going to the top of Everest, man, I want someone next to me that's actually done it, that's summited. And so, like every single coach that we have is someone that's actually earning or earned $1, $2, $3, $4 million consecutive years in a row in their business, right? So I think it's really important that when you start to look at the industry itself, that you got someone that's actually done what they're teaching you to do, and they've done it with the model that it is that they're teaching. So when you look at the structure, for me, it's 30-minute call 4 times a month, unlimited access. Same with my coaches, right? And on that very first session, man, I tell them this. I go, listen, I'm not your coach. I'm your business partner. I'm a silent partner. And the way that I monetize is on my coaching fee, right? Versus having a percentage of the business, right? So I look at your money like it's my money, right? I probably protect it. I'm a mass consumer, dude. I got like 29 Air Jordans. Like, it's horrible addiction, right? So, but I'm smart.
I could think of worse. Just to be clear.
Yes, for sure. So, but I look at myself as a business partner, board of directors, if you will. And I'm not. And I'll say myself and just superimpose that with all the coaches as well too. We're not rah-rah, right? We're in your face a little bit. We're not like a Bob Corcoran that's going to yell and scream at you, but we are going to like have fierce conversations that are necessary. We make all of our coaching is centralized around this one concept, which is data over drama. We're going to make decisions in the business. In fact, I just had a coaching call this morning with a great agent that's down in Arizona that's like, hey, I got a team of 45 people. We want to cut the team, bring it down to 15, right? And be more profitable. And she was like super emotional over the last 48 hours. And I said, don't do anything until we talk. And we unpacked it. We took her drama out of the way. We looked at the data of some primary lead sources, one which starts with a Z, and here in the States, I'll let you fill in the blanks on that. And she only monetized $187,000 off of it. Well, how do we make a decision on that? We ran the numbers and said, well, that's 12 normal deals. You did 25 million off of this one lead source. You only made 187. If we actually like cut that, because she's like, we're gonna get rid of it. I'm gonna go, before we make that decision, let's look at the data, right? And so that way we can remove emotion out of it and relate to it. Because real estate agents, we're all we're artists, entrepreneurs. So we're high emotion, right? And so we've got to remove the emotion, treat it like a business. We are business consultants first, second, and third for our clients now. So we're not, like just a coach. We are in-depth consultants on business, using the data to be able to make decisions so that we can actually not make mistakes or minimize mistakes that are made. So,
well, again, like that totally makes sense. I love the idea of having the parallel of somebody. I love that analogy of if I'm climbing to Everest, I want somebody that's been there with us. So again, I totally get that. But leading into, let's talk about then some of the traditional coaching organizations that are out there, because that's one of the things that I definitely think very much falls short is these panels or this high volume of people that are out there coaching agents that I think that there's a part of me that believes this and a part of me that doesn't. But I believe that the industry has sort of hit this bracket where it's sort of stayed for so long from just if you looked at a total production perspective, and it sat there primarily based on the fact that I think that the way that the industry is coached, the way that it is trained, it caters towards the people that are of the masses, that the people that it's kind of again, I didn't want to say this, but I'm going to, it's the blind leading the blind. Yeah. And I just want to get your perspective, because you've been in most of these organizations. Yeah. Where do they lack? What are they lacking? What is something that agents should be cautious of, that when they're engaging a coach, yes, you've got to make sure they've done it, but let's face it though, like the big ones out there, who remain nameless. I don't want to go through and name people, but there is panels of hundreds of coaches where literally I could point out 3 of them within the hundreds of coaches that they have that probably have any clout whatsoever or any idea.
Yeah, totally. And I think here's and listen, I love all my competitors, right? Because I've worked with a lot of them, right? I've had the privilege of learning from some of the best. And I think at any given time at some season in their growth, they had to make a decision, right, where I'm going to give up quality for quantity, right?
Sure.
And so I think that what happens is you outgrow your model, meaning that the model is built upon, all of them start with these great coaches. You know what I mean? I can think about one in particular when they were at 20 or 24 coaches, and I was part of it, and I was responsible for helping train the coaches and hold them accountable. That model was great, but then all of a sudden now when you have 150, 200 coaches, it's impossible to maintain the same integrity that you had at 20 or 24, because you chose to go bigger for bigger versus bigger for better. So,
Mm.
um,
Is there so there's a thing that you should take into consideration then when you're choosing an organization. We've done a few episodes on this podcast this year so far, Bill, where we've sort of spoken about diminishing return. Like, should people be conscious of the fact of the size of an organization that once it gets to a certain point, it becomes kind of unmanageable from a quality standpoint?
it does. And you know what? I think that because I know everyone who's listening is an agent. I think you can apply that to your. I think you can hear in this conversation. I invite you, in fact, to listen to this conversation, the lessons that you can learn in your own business as well too, right? Because bigger isn't always better, right? I mean, look. I go to a boutique store at Gucci, right? Or I go to Tom Ford or someplace else along those lines. They're never going to be the Nordstrom here in the States or whatever. And they chose this high margin, smaller model because it worked for them, and for these bigger organizations, it works for them at scale. But the impact is you get a lower caliber in many cases of an experience for the client, right? So if you're looking at it for yourself and you're an agent, and let's not talk about you choosing a coach, let's talk about you growing your business, right? Slow, steady growth is better than exponential, right? Because you'll have an ability to you're going to make mistakes along the way. That's a guarantee, right? And that's one of the things we, in our organization and in my family even, we celebrate failure, man. Like it is something that we're like, yes, you failed. Now, here's the deal, though, right? The critical part is we celebrate the first failure. We're going to kick your butt for the second one, right? Because the first failure is your learning lesson. The second failure is a choice to continue doing things a way that didn't work, right? And so it is a mantra that we have. If you're going to fail big, learn from it. I learned that from Tim Grover, right? The great coach of Michael Jordan and of Kobe Bryant and of Dwayne Wade and Charles Barkley, et cetera. He's a personal trainer for them, wrote the book Winning, Relentless, a whole bunch of them. He said, man, when the greats get knocked down, they stay down, they learn the lesson, they make the adjustment, they move forward. Right. And so for all of you that are looking at scaling an organization, it's the same way that you look at the lessons that we've learned. Like we made a decision, and this is really interesting because I coach so many large brokerages, right, and teams. And I said, we're going to build this organization the way that I coach people to actually build their organizations. We're going to have integrity. We're going to line up with what it is that we teach. And so we said, we're not going to allow everyone into our coaching. They have to be earning a couple $100,000 to begin with, right? We're not going to chase them, right? In terms of, we're not going to have a sales organization that's hammering people to be able to sign up. We're going to present the opportunity. We'll follow up with them a couple of times. And if they don't respond, we're not going to chase them, because what we look at, and by the way, this is a great recruiting tool for all of you guys that are looking at growing your own team. If you have to chase someone, then they're not exhibiting the characteristics, the qualities, and the traits that you want to have on your team, period. You know what I mean? So, and I said, we're going to run this the same way. If we have to chase someone, well, they're not showing us we've codified the 7-figure behaviors. We know what they are. We've looked at it for the 40 people that we've gotten over $1 million and the hundreds that we have that are over $1 million already. We said, what are those behaviors? Well, ability to execute quickly is one of them, and to make a decision quickly, right? And so we have, when I made this decision, Ben, I recognize that it may make our growth slower, but we're going to have the right people put with the right coaches, right? And we're going to win some championships. And because of that, This is an exciting thing. We're in now. Now, keep in mind, I've got a lot of experience with Mike Ferry, with Tom Ferry, with John Cheplack, and even with Gary Keller and Diana Kokoska for MAPS. Like that's the pedigree of people that I had the chance to work with, be the number 2 in their organizations. I knew we were going to grow slower, but we launched officially G3, right, which stands for Grit, Grin, and Grow. It's sort of our tagline. Grit, it's what it requires to be able to be successful. Grin, smile when you're doing it. Real estate's a great field to be involved in. And grow. You do those 2 things, you're going to grow. So when we launched G3 in April, what happened is I could not expect that after almost a full year, we have had, and we've added our pro forma, like we're on pro forma, we've had 0 people cancel out of our coaching program.
Wow.
Right?
Okay. That's cool. That's really cool. It's testament.
Dude, it's one of the things next to my kids and my relationship with my significant other, right? It's the thing that I'm the most proud of, which tells us that the model's working.
So let's talk about growth. Growth is it's a word that takes this form within our community of real estate that I honestly think it's actually a bad thing, because there's this hamster wheel that you get on when it comes to real estate, where there's this expectation that year over year that you're always going to grow. Now, last year, in our network, we had 27% of people that were in our network actually have a better year than the previous year, but that still left a great deal of a higher volume of people that didn't. And, transaction volumes down, all of those different things. There's a couple of things that you said previously that sort of brought this question up in my mind. And the first one that I want to sort of go through with you is that there's this expectation that people need to grow their businesses. What is it? What is a key metric that you see that someone is ready for growth versus not ready for it? Because I've got a great deal of people in our organization when we do business planning with them at the beginning of the year, where it's like, hey guys, let's just plan on creating some consistency within your business. Rather than you thinking that you're going to double it overnight or whatever it may be, because the next part of this is the instant gratification that is in our industry. You just said that, incremental growth is really great. Like, it's sustainable. It's the way that probably things should grow so that they don't break.
Yeah.
But instant gratification in our industry is something that, we deal with on a very consistent basis within our network. We have a non-distressed auction process that we have as part of our value offering. And our primary way of teaching people is that, hey, instant gratification means that you're underselling that property. And it's amazing. Like, an agent can stare down the barrel of like, okay, I understand that, but I just want my commission check now, though I don't care.
I'm going to go from like 250 to 500K, man. So I don't care if it's messy. Well, it's going to be messy, like regardless of what you do, or even if you have a coach or whatever, it's going to be messy, like a little bit messy. I mean, obviously you minimize the mistakes by having mentorship or whatever. But if I look at the growth model that I like to see, it's about 20 to 30%, right? So if I see a 20 to 30% increase every single year, well, that's more than 125% approximately after 3 years. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you've built it intelligently. See, I see a lot of people that have these huge spikes in terms of production. What you guys don't, when I say you guys, what people who are listening probably don't know is you get underneath those hoods, and the challenge, if we go data, the challenge is, you had the growth, but you made about the same money. You took home about the same money, right?
Wow, that's interesting.
And this is, I think there's two fundamental challenges that we all have to look at in our space of real estate coaching, seminars, and everything else. You put the people on the stage, and all we talk about, and this is not something that I like to do, but what I see at a lot of events is you put up and you talk top line revenue, right? Really, what matters is margins and profitability. What needs to be talked about with agents is, what's your profitability? Okay, yeah, you grew by 100%, but your margins got cut in half, right? Which is understandable. Your margins are going to get squeezed. By the way, your margins will get squeezed when you're growing, right? It's natural to have less profitability. But when you do that 20 to 30% growth metric, and that's bigger at scale. Let's be very clear. If there's an agent, that agent's selling 20 to 25 homes, yeah, you can double your production, right? Why is that? Because the moves that are necessary inside that model, I call it tier one. We have tier one, tier two, and tier three agent models. Tier one agent model is an agent that wants to go up to about 40-ish transactions. In that tier one component, it is possible, without it being messy and without it being challenging, to be able to double that. Well, why? Because when you're going from 12, 15, 20 deals to 40, it's all about your disciplines, your execution, the strategies around your lead sources, right? And those are things that are simply adjusted, right? Okay. And it doesn't require a lot of movement. It just requires a lot of commitment on the part of the person, of the agent. Now, when you start to go from 40, 45 to 70, 80, well, now you're adding people on. You're recruiting, you're bringing on agents to be able to be part of your team or to be showing agents. You're bringing on admin. You're naturally going to see a constriction that takes place in terms of your profit margins at that point, with the expectation of, once you get those fixed costs in place, then you can actually scale a little bit more and your margins increase. Does that make sense? So
that does make total sense. Yeah.
Tier two piece of the business, right? That's where, like, hey, if an agent goes from about 50 transactions to 70, right, which is, about 35%, I'm really happy with that. But the challenge is, we put people on stage that have these exponential growth, but what you don't see is behind the scenes, their margins are super slim, their marriage is falling apart, their health is collapsing, right? So I'd rather say, hey, you're going to be in this business for how many years? 15 years, 20 years? Cool. right? This is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. Let's do this the right way. Let's minimize the mistakes that you need to make because the mistakes cost you money, right? That's the biggest thing. And let's maximize that you've built a foundation so that we can hit the gas stronger in the next year. You're still going to actually, if I'm selling 50 and I go to 70, well, cool. I'm still going to add 200 to 300,000, 400,000, $500,000, depending upon what the commission is, to my business. It's fantastic, so.
I think that there's a part of this also, and again, this might be just a cynical comment, so forgive me if it does come across that way, and correct me if you think I'm wrong. The thing the biggest problem I've seen in big spikes in people's earnings is 2022 was a year of self-entitlement, if you ask me. What I mean by that is that 2021 for many, many people was a record year within real estate. So maybe that might have been 2022. But the preceding year is that now that people have hit this pinnacle mark or this really high watermark from a income perspective, it's amazing how many of those people turn around and be like, well, okay, well, this is just going to continue to happen for me now.
Yeah.
And then there's zero self-reflection at that point. What do you think is important on that journey of increasing your business and going through growth to not let self-entitlement creep in?
So let me talk 2021, 2022 really quick. There were a lot of people that I think got fooled into thinking they were good agents and great leaders, and it was just a unicorn market. That's it.
Yeah. They rode the wave.
They rode the wave, and they had that hubris. Like they had this pride to them that they didn't have hubris. They had the pride that actually allowed them not to be able to look at themselves and to be able to say, what is this next stage for me? Now, here's how I position this with the people I coach. In fact, I got a great team that I coach down in Tucson, Arizona, and 3 leaders. One's director of operations, director of sales, and the other one is the director of growth that recruits. The main owner of the company is what they would call like 7th level or whatever you want to call it, which means that he's really not actively involved. I had a conversation with him and I said, okay, is your goal bigger for 2024? Yes. Substantially or not? Yes, it's a substantial difference. Okay. And when I say substantial, meaning that they wanted to have like a 40% growth model. I said, okay. I asked them, I want you to look at who you were as a leader in 2023. Okay. And I said, let's just define it. And I gave this to them as an assignment. Define who you are as a leader. Who were you as a leader? What were your characteristics, behaviors, traits, disciplines, etc.? And then we looked at it and they wanted to have 35, 40, almost 45% growth in their model. And I said, the leader that you were in 2023 is not going to be the leader that you need to be in 2024. You want a 40% increase? You can't be that same person. I see a lot of people don't take the time to self-reflect, whether it's on leadership or whether it's them as an individual agent, to be able to actually say, okay, there's the version of me that was last year, and that version generated $500,000. Well, I've got this new goal, Ben, of $700,000 or $600,000 or whatever the increase is. What are the characteristics, behaviors, disciplines, traits, rituals, routines, skills that this 2024 version of me needs to acquire to justify the gap, right? Because it's a justification. Like you got to justify the gap of growth with your actions and your disciplines, with optimizing strategic approaches to your business and your lead sources, and to building even higher level of skills. If you don't, you'll always earn what you should earn based upon your discipline, skills, and strategies, period. So I think that there's this moment where you need to like say, if I'm going to do more, I have to be more. And what does that look like? And that by the way, like the 3 things I just gave, skills, imagine a circle here, intertwined with standards, which are disciplines, intertwined with another circle, and they all 3 meet in the middle. The last one is strategies. We call that the S4 principle, right? That when you have the right skills, you have the right standards, which are disciplines, rituals, and routines. You have the right strategies, which are systems, processes, and people to optimize and become more efficient and effective. You have those 3 intertwined in the middle is that moment of success. Like you can succeed, but they're all interdependent upon each other, right? So when you look at it and you're at the end of the year, you want to earn more. Okay, cool. Which skills do I need to work on? Is it my presentation? Is it my conversion? And if you're a leader, which skills does my team need to work on, right? So, and you have that same conversation around your standards, which are your disciplines, and then you look at where there's an opportunity to optimize your systems and your processes. So,
You're a coach that obviously has a great deal of experience and a wealth of knowledge, that when you sit in front of somebody, that you give them an angle on things that you hope that they take on board. The part of this, how do you, so if we're talking to business owners and leaders of their individual teams, or whether or not they own a brokerage or whatever it is that are on here, is that I always have found that it's an interesting relationship that you can have with an agent, in the sense that they believe they're paying you, right? They believe that they're the ones that are in your business and they're paying you to be there and you should help them and all of those different things. But then when you give them advice and you give them information and you give them a structure of which you're going to give them, and then they don't execute on that structure, I guess that your relationship with that agent is the same as the kind of like a business owner. They're paying you to get that advice. How do you maintain that relationship from a perspective of respect when you're giving them that information, but you're clearly seeing them not execute on the stuff that you're giving them that is so valuable?
So it's actually a really good question, because the biggest complaint, when I've helped run or been involved in leadership in some of these larger coaching organizations, is my coach asked me, gave me what to do, never followed up, and never held me accountable. Right. So that is hands down. And by the way, if you're currently in coaching and your coach isn't holding you accountable, find a new coach.
Yeah, right.
Like real, and it isn't like, hey, I'm in coaching for accountability, but if they're not going to follow up, if they're not going to actually take the time to be able to make sure that you're following through, all that you're getting is more information, and you don't need more information. What most people who are listening need to execute on the SHIT. Sorry, I gave up cursing for Lent, so that doesn't count. Right? So I literally gave up cursing for Lent. Tomorrow is the official day, like when Lent.
Oh, it's going to flood through. I love it. I should have done it tomorrow.
Tonight at 11:59, there's going to be a cloud of profanities above my house. I'm just going to get it all out for 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, so beautiful. When I start coaching with someone, here's what I tell them: I've already raised 2 kids. I've changed all the diapers. I've wiped all the assets that I need to. Okay, that is not my job. I assume that you're in my schedule. We're working together because you're going to execute. Do I have full permission to call you out on your SHIT when you don't do it? How do you want me to do it? What level of it? So I set that relationship.
It's a setting of a standard at the beginning and an expectation.
And I say, what level of accountability do you want, Ben? Oh, I want a 10. What does a 10 look like for you? Right? Okay, good. Right? And do I have full permission to call you out, to get up in your grill if it's necessary to make sure that you follow through? Yes. Typically, if that comes up and they don't do it, I go, remember that conversation, Ben, that we had at the beginning of our coaching? Remember that moment we talked about where I was going to need to actually, lovingly support you in a manner that may be uncomfortable? That moment's right now. So yep. I get the permission at the very beginning. The relationship is built upon mutual trust and respect, right? And should I need to, I reference back to that moment, and typically it only takes one time, and then it's done at that point. And the same is true for coaches as well.
Do you have to part way? Do you have to part ways with somebody that, let's say, it's just lip service? Like, because again, I know lots and lots and lots of coaches that legitimately, like, they will just keep showing up to the coaching meeting and take the individual fee.
So yeah,
even though there's nothing that's changing.
Funny story. One of my clients in Palm Springs, and this client, who will remain nameless, we built out the entire system for the growth process of the team. Right? We're moving to a W-2 process for her to be able to maintain more control. She runs a small team. She's going to have 2 showing assistants that she had on salary, and they got a small bonus for the transactions. It allow for these showing agents to actually earn $100,000, $150,000 a year, which is fantastic, right? And these are first year, second year agents. And then all of a sudden, we came back from and she had called me and said, Bill, like, I really need your help on this and take me through it. And I'm just having a chat. And I said, cool, you good? You can execute? She said, yes. Came back to the coaching session, and she went a whole other different, she did something completely different and gave up a very big percentage of the commission on the agreement with this person that she was bringing onto her team. And I actually said to her, I go, why are you coaching with me? If you're not going to take the advice, like, you're wasting your time, keep your money, go on vacation and run the business that you want to. Otherwise, if we're going to stay together, this is the last time. This is the very last time that we will ever have something like this happen. Otherwise, there's no point in us working together. So now
Yeah.
I love her. Like I literally, she's like a sister to me. Like I would jump in front of a train. It's a difficult thing for me to say. But see, sometimes leadership, guys, is having those fierce conversations, going out, going to the line for somebody. And she called one of her friends who I also coach and said, "Oh my gosh, coach almost kicked me out of the schedule. Dad, never gonna, nah, nah, nah." So it was, sometimes we got to have those conversations with love in our heart, with our principles still being held, right? So that people understand what the boundaries are inside the relationship, whether that's you and the
Yeah.
people on your team, you and yourself, you and a coaching client, if other coaches are listening as well too.
I think there's a level of respect that you have to have for yourself in order to make sure that you have that conversation, because too often I think that, it's funny, there's a program that we experimented with for some of our offices, and which is a recruitment program. And it's funny, we put the recruitment program on for our offices because we have a structure where we want to be alongside of our offices, helping them grow every step of the way in their businesses with them, from the accounting elements through to the recruitment, all of that stuff. And it's funny, we offered this up to the business owners to say, hey, we can do the recruitment for you. Now, the business owners that were serious about obviously growing their business, the recruitment program, by the way, failed, miserable failure, right? And it was and the people that weren't getting the results from it immediately, 3 months, hey, look, nope, we can't do this anymore. It's not bringing us what we need. I need to get back in the trenches and I need to be the one recruiting. And they realized that. But the funny part about it, the majority of people just hung around because and again, I put a stop to it eventually because it just wasn't bringing in the results. But people were paying us a monthly fee in order to do that recruitment, just so that they could have the guilt dissipated, going, no, well, there's recruitment being done over there.
Yeah.
And I think coaching can be like that if you're not too aware and you don't have the right person that is going to call you out on the stuff, because coaching can be one of those things as well from an agent perspective that is like, no, well, I'm getting coached. Yeah. It's like, well, is it actually helping you, or is it just filling a gap to say that you are doing it?
Is it making you feel better? Because there's a reason why they sell gym capacity memberships 200 to 300% higher. So you can say you got your gym membership, you know what I mean? So, I show up for my trainer at 5 a.m. 3 days a week, and to get my butt kicked. Like that's why I'm in there, because now I think if you look at it, setting the right expectation when someone comes on board, okay, getting permission to be able to have the relationship, to establish, here's how the relationship is going to be established. And do I have permission to do X, Y, and Z? And then I give permission. I'm like, hey, Ben, I want you to be able to give me feedback as well too. Tell me what's working, what's not working, if there's anything. And I love that. I love that feedback loop. But then you got to follow through, man. You know what I mean? Like leadership is all about, number one, being the example. And by the way, one of my buddies, guy by the name of John Cheplack, I love John. I think the world of him. I think one of the things that he's done so well is he's a walking embodiment for the principles that he teaches, right? And so I think for me as a coach, I call it 25 mil bill, because I've got a goal that the company has top line revenue within the next couple of years of $25 million. Well, there's this avatar of me, of who I need to be at 25 million, that I'm constantly referring back to. And I go, what would 25 mil bill do here? What would 25 mil bill do here? What would 25 mil bill do? But it's not just about like, it's when I just want to sleep in. Well, what would 25 mil bill do? It's when I want to yell at my kids. What would which is often with a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old dude. How would 25 mil bill handle this? When I want to do the laundry instead of paying my person that comes in at $40 an hour to do the laundry, right? What would 25 like? So I have this bounce. I bounce it off of this person, and I that becomes the opportunity for me to make intelligent decisions, right?
I really like that. I really like the ability to keep checking in with the person that you're growing towards. That's really great. And speaking of which, I think it's a great segue to sort of round out the episode. Is let's talk about some personal traits here, Bill. Like I want to try and sort of dive into some non-real estate related stuff here for a moment. Let's look at like morning routines. Let's look at podcasts. Let's look at books. You mentioned a book before. I think it's Winning was one of them. But but what are your favorite books, podcasts, routines in the morning? What do you do? Like, give us some life hacks.
Yeah. So podcasts that I'm loving, I'll go. So I'm a data geek by design, not by choice, right? I teach what's called data-driven and education-based data-driven selling. That I believe that the sales process needs to be a process of like prospecting to find the motivated, right? taking those motivated and educating them so that they can make a decision based upon the risk adversity and their level of motivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And using data to be able to do the heavy lifting. So my favorite podcasts are a little bit more data driven. I love Logan Motoshami of Housing Wire, so I'm constantly listening to him and Sarah from a data standpoint. I absolutely love Altos Research, and these are our data feeds for me. Altos Research and Mike Simonson. So I'm listening to a lot of economics from a personal growth and development. Huberman Lab.
Love that.
The dude's a beast. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like neuroscientist. And when you say neuroscientist, Ben, like, like you think like, sort of nerdy, whatever, but the dude is yoked.
The dude is jacked, and he's jacked,
bro. Like,
I didn't notice that. By the way, I didn't notice that until someone posted a video of him. Like, he's always wearing a black t-shirt and whatever, like a shirt or whatever it is, and then like he's kind of like always in darker backgrounds, and then he's carrying this rock up a hill. I'm like, who's that? And I'm like, and he's just yoked. I'm like, oh, that's Huberman.
And what I love about Huberman is, I notice. And I learned this from an individual that is partnered with me. He's a 5% partner in our business. He's a billionaire. And I brought him in as a 5% owner in the business, not because we needed the funds and the capital, because it's easy to raise. I brought him in for the influence that he would have on me. You know what I mean? And I said, I'm willing to give up 5, 10, even 20% of the company if I have this guy in my back pocket that I can talk to. He taught me a lesson, really great lesson. And he has one of the largest mortgage companies in all of North America. And I said to him, what were the biggest mistakes that you made in the growth of this business? He goes, you were asking the wrong question. I love people that just like go straight to that. I go, what do you mean? He goes, it's not what were the biggest mistakes, it's why were they made? I go, well, okay. And he taught me something, right? And he said, the biggest mistakes that you make in life are made because you lack energy. Because when you lack energy, you cut corners. When you lack energy, you don't follow processes and systems.
That's good.
I was just,
that's really good. That's so true.
I get chills on my arms. And I started looking.
I'm just thinking about shit that's gone wrong today, let alone everything else. And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I lacked energy in that moment for sure.
Like a conversation that doesn't go well, a close, a listing presentation, a buyer consult. And like if you're in low energy state, you're gonna miss the opportunity, right? Or you're gonna make a mistake. You're not gonna say the right thing, or you're not gonna close appropriately. So what I love about Huberman is I like when Pavan talked to me about that, when my partner talked to me about that, I went on. Like I've always been known, like my tagline is Bill Pipes, alive, excited, and full of energy. But I started looking at it, I said, I'm 52 years old, man. I need to hack this. So I take about 47 supplements a day. So,
wow.
Like pills and
do you have one that you noticed the biggest change when you started to do it?
Yeah, there's a company out there based out of Santa Monica. It's called Dr. Schultz, like not the inserts, but all organic. Any of his products, I think it's HerbDoc, HERB.com. His products all organically sourced, et cetera. And he's been around for years. In fact, I got turned on to him from Mike Ferry, right? And
right.
But what I like, Huberman has this whole mind body connection. You know what I mean? And so I like him. I'm a big fan of Alex Hormozi as well too.
Okay.
I think from a tactical business standpoint, Hormozi's authenticity, transparency, and insights are invaluable. So
I've struggled with Hormozi, not because of the nature of who he is or anything like that. It's just the volume of, I don't know, the shit that he talks. Like it's just like some of the stuff like is just completely left of field, and I'm like, that is just so out there. And then some of it's really good.
Yeah, dude, there's filtration for sure. There's filtration.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I don't listen to any podcasts that he has. I listen to short form content from him.
Yeah, the short form's probably the best. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Actually, that's a really good point.
Short form content with him. I can't do him long form. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like when Tim Ferriss went to a 2-hour podcast. He lost.
Oh, dude.
You know, oh, come on, man.
And also, yeah, and Tim's not exactly the most exciting person either when it comes to that stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some really good stuff in there, but like he's talking about, like he loses me when he talks about the hallucinogenics and all of that type of stuff. I'm like, oh, come on, man. What are we doing? Let's rein it back in.
Yeah, I can appreciate your mushrooms, but I want to know how to hire my next person on my team. You know what I mean? So,
that's right. That's right. Well, any of your favorite? Do you have any favorite books?
Yeah. So, I'm. Believe it or not, like I was in a PhD program for comparative literature, right? And so it was that was what I was going to do. Like, and so I love some classic literature. I like to go straight to the sources. I love me. So I'm going to give you like the classics that I would recommend for everyone. Marcus Aurelius, like just freaking, you cannot go wrong with that. And so much of personal growth and development and the stoicism of Marcus Aurelius, the modern day personal growth and development can point back to a couple of key strains. Number one is Aurelius. Number two is I love Ralph Waldo Emerson. I think Emerson's the transcendental movement in the late 1800s and like is fantastic, right? Because like this whole "you become what you think about" was a function of that whole movement. So I think if you go into any Ralph Waldo Emerson's essays, nature, commerce, any of that stuff, it's really good.
Isn't it amazing though when you read through that stuff? Like I really struggle to read a lot, but the Marcus Aurelius stuff, like when I went through that book and I'm going through it and I only got about halfway through it, like when I was reading it, it's kind of like this is bullshit. This is written like this guy could literally be living today. Like
yes.
Like he could be beside me right now giving me this advice. Like there's a few things in there that have aged. There's no question, but most of it is just so on point for even today's society.
So relevant, so right now. Yeah. And you know what I love? Like it's Meditations. Like the book's called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and it's his journal. Right? This is a dude that was the emperor of Rome, was a freaking battle warrior, was a statesman. You know, like I look at that, and I'm like, that's what the world needs today, right? It needs statesmen, not politicians. Statesmen, you know, it needs people that have principles and they stick to those principles and guidelines. And really, you know, like for me, and granted, you know, history will paint the picture of someone based upon time, right? And so probably stuff has got left out. But I look at that and I only want to read people, just like I only want to have people coach me who have freaking walked the walk. Right. And so I go, dude, if this guy wrote, these are his journals, basically. Meditations are his journals. If he wrote this as the emperor of the greatest kingdom, greatest, you know, culture ever on the planet, then it's got to have relevancy for me today. That's someone that I can emulate. I also love The Art of War by Sun Tzu. From a tactical strategic standpoint, and it isn't to go out and take over. It's like, what can I be doing to be more effective inside the environment? So those are some of the classics. I think if I go modern, let's look here. Okay. I'm a big fan, and I learned this from Mike Ferry, one of my primary mentors. And big ups to Mike Ferry. Like, I would not be where I am, or the man that I am, or the business person, if it wasn't for the fundamental and foundations that he created inside of me. I switched over because really, in personal growth and development books, after about 3 chapters, you got the punchline at that point.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, I got the punchline, etc. I switched over to reading biographies: Elon Musk, Walt Disney, Steve Jobs. All of Isaacson's autobiographies or biographies that he did are freaking invaluable, right?
Right.
Isaacson is the writer that actually did Jobs and Musk and a whole bunch of other ones. So I love diving into that because I can learn from the story. I don't have to be spoon fed and said, here's point number 1 and point number 2, point number 3. I want to know, like, I want to know that Elon Musk was 3 days away from going bankrupt, and he went to his freaking C-suite. He said, guys, we got to go out and we got to sell that. Like that part of the story. I'm like, oh, that's great, man. You know, that whole company was founded on 3 days of selling from C-suite individuals, or else they would have gone bankrupt. They would have had a capital call and they would have been done, right? So I love the biographies and Jobs and all of the rest of those. So I think you can't go wrong with that. The more biographies that you can get. I like the biographies more than the autobiographies because the autobiographies have a tendency to be able to be self-serving a little bit for the person that wrote them. So there is one more too. Ayn Rand's book, The Fountainhead. I'm rereading that right now. Granted, it's 1,100 pages. Ooh. I absolutely freaking love that book. So, like, I know
what's the author again?
Ayn Rand. The book's called The Fountainhead. It's about how individuals who stick to principles are going to be on the shearing edge and graded down by society, right? And so I think it's important to understand and to know that when you hold strict to your principles, like it's not easy to actually do slow, sustained growth, right? When everyone else around you is talking about, I doubled my production, I did this or whatever, right? And you're going, I'm going to build something beautiful, sustainable, that's going to last for a long time, right? I'm going to do it right? You're going to bump up against stuff at that time. So I think those are some of the books. Those are the individuals. I really like Cody Sanchez, female podcaster that's really, really solid as well too. So.
Well, you've been invaluable today, Bill. So we really appreciate this. All of the links to where to contact you are all going to be in the show notes here. So again, we appreciate your service to the industry, and looking forward to having you back involved with our network, and hopefully you being invaluable for years and years to come.
Dude, I'm grateful and honored at the chance to be able to actually share this time with you. And I just would leave everyone with one thought: you get this run once, make it count, dude. Like honest to goodness, because you blink and it's over. So, that's why I keep this on my arm. It says Carpe Diem on right here, which is seize the day, and Amor Fati right here, which means embrace your fate, love every single moment of it. So I appreciate the time, man. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks again. So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.